Do you remember the sound? For millions, this wasn't just a notification. It was the sound of connection, business, and for a time, the future. This is the story of BlackBerry, a tale of meteoric rise and a fall so catastrophic it became a business school cautionary tale. How did a company that once had the world in its palm, with a 50% market share in the US, simply vanish from our pockets? Our story begins in 1984 with two brilliant minds, Mike Lazaridis, the tech genius, and Jim Balsillie, the sharp-witted business strategist. Together, they ran Research in Motion, or RIM. For years, they worked on pagers and wireless data technology. But in 1999, they unveiled something that would change everything, the BlackBerry 850. It wasn't a phone yet, but it was a pager that could do two-way email. It was revolutionary. Suddenly, professionals could leave the office and still be connected. The name. It came from the tiny keys, which someone thought looked like the droplets on a BlackBerry. The real game changer arrived with the first BlackBerry phone. What made it so addictive? Two things. First, that iconic QWERTY keyboard. The tactile feedback of those little keys was just so satisfying. It felt professional, efficient. They even called it the CrackBerry because users just couldn't put it down. Executives, politicians, celebrities. Everyone who was anyone had a BlackBerry. It was the ultimate status symbol. The second secret weapon was BBM, BlackBerry Messenger. This was the original instant messaging app, exclusive to BlackBerry users. It was fast, secure, and had that little D for delivered and for read, which was mind-blowing at the time. BBM created a loyal, almost tribal community. If your friends were on BBM, you had to have a BlackBerry. It was a closed ecosystem that kept people locked in and competitors locked out. For a while, it seemed absolutely invincible. At their peak in the mid-2000s, RIM was a behemoth. Their stock was soaring, and their devices were everywhere. They weren't just a phone company, they were a cultural phenomenon. They had successfully conquered the corporate world and were making huge inroads with younger consumers who loved the instant gratification of BBM. Lazaridis and Balsillie were hailed as national heroes in Canada. They had created a global tech giant from scratch. But high up on their throne, they couldn't see the earthquake that was about to shake their entire kingdom. January 9, 2007. Steve Jobs walks onto a stage and pulls a device out of his pocket. The iPhone. It had no physical keyboard, just a giant, beautiful touchscreen. At RIM's headquarters, the executives reportedly scoffed. How could anyone type on a piece of glass? A phone without a keyboard was a toy, not a tool for serious people. They believed its battery life would be terrible and that the cellular networks couldn't even handle the data it would consume. This wasn't just a miscalculation, it was strategic arrogance. They were so confident in their own product that they completely dismissed the single biggest threat they would ever face. The public, however, didn't see a toy. They saw the future. The iPhone wasn't just about email and calls, it was about the internet in your pocket. It was about apps, music, and videos on a stunning display. The user experience was intuitive, magical. While BlackBerry was focused on being the best email machine, Apple had created a pocket-sized computer. The ground had shifted, but BlackBerry's leaders were standing still. They fundamentally misunderstood that the battle was no longer about the device itself, but about the software ecosystem. Apple's App Store was a masterstroke, creating endless possibilities, while BlackBerry's own app world felt barren and outdated. When BlackBerry finally realized the threat was real, their response was a series of disastrous missteps. Their first attempt at a touchscreen phone was the BlackBerry Storm, launched in 2008. It was a catastrophe. Instead of a smooth glass surface, the Storm had a sure-press screen that you had to physically click down to register a touch. It was clunky, unintuitive, and incredibly buggy. The device was so bad that Verizon, its carrier partner, had to replace almost every single one they sold. It was a massive financial and reputational blow. They had tried to copy the iPhone's form factor without understanding its soul. Next came their attempt to compete with the iPad, the BlackBerry Playbook tablet. Launched in 2011, it was another critical failure. In a baffling decision, the Playbook launched without a native email or calendar app, the very things BlackBerry was famous for. To get your email, you had to connect it to your BlackBerry phone. It was completely dependent on another device, making it useless as a standalone product. Consumers were confused, critics were merciless, and sales were abysmal. RIM had to write off nearly $500 million in unsold Playbooks. The pattern was clear. BlackBerry was no longer innovating. They were just reacting, and reacting poorly. While BlackBerry was fumbling, another giant was rising: Android. Google's open-source operating system offered choice and flexibility. Manufacturers like Samsung, HTC, and Motorola flooded the market with a huge variety of Android phones at every price point. The combination of the premium iPhone and the versatile Android army created a pincer movement that squeezed BlackBerry from both sides. Their market share began to plummet. The CrackBerry addiction was fading, replaced by the endless scroll of social media apps and games on iOS and Android. BBM was no longer a killer feature when apps like WhatsApp became available on every platform, connecting everyone, not just BlackBerry users. The final years were a painful, slow-motion collapse. Lazaridis and Balsillie, the two leaders who had built the empire, stepped down in 2012. The company tried one last reinvention, launching the BlackBerry 10 operating system and new phones like the Z10. The Z10 was a decent phone, a pure touchscreen device that finally abandoned the keyboard, but it was too little, too late. The app gap was now a chasm. People had already invested in the Apple and Google ecosystems, and there was no compelling reason to switch back. The financial losses were staggering. Billions of dollars were wiped from the company's value. Layoffs hit thousands of loyal employees. The company that had once defined the smartphone was now fighting for survival. By 2016, the fight was over. The company announced it would stop designing its own hardware and would instead license the BlackBerry brand to other manufacturers. It was the official end of an era. The classic BlackBerry phone was gone. The company itself, now called BlackBerry Limited, pivoted to become a software and security company, a field where it still finds success today. But the magic, the cultural dominance, the device that once sat in the hands of presidents and CEOs, had vanished. So what's the lesson from BlackBerry's spectacular fall? It's a story of how success can breed complacency. It's a warning that what makes you successful today won't necessarily keep you successful tomorrow. BlackBerry was so focused on perfecting its own game, secure email on a physical keyboard, that it completely missed the fact that the game itself was changing. They sold a tool, while Apple and Google sold a lifestyle. In the fast-paced world of technology, you're either the one causing disruption, or you're the one being disrupted. BlackBerry learned that lesson the hard way. From the pinnacle of the tech world to a ghost in the mobile landscape, the story of BlackBerry is a reminder that no empire is too big to fail. Thanks for watching. If you found this story fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the brands and technologies that have shaped our world. See you in the next one.